Hiya friends, Prepared Suburbanite back at you. Hey, couple of questions. Are you prepared for World War III? And related to that, do you have confidence in the current administration to avert the potential for World War III? And thirdly, do you have confidence in the current administration to win a war against China, Russia, and North Korea? I'll be back with my thoughts right after this. Our current administration has really been doing absolutely the opposite things, and at least in my opinion, to get us ready for any kind of potential World War III level conflict, whether we engage against China, against Russia, against North Korea, against Iran, or all four put together. It could be quite the thing. Right now it's been reported that we can't and don't have enough ammunition and can't produce enough ammunition to supply our initiatives, I guess, in Ukraine right now. And I think some of the reasons that that's a concern to me is that many of the components that are used in the manufacture of ammunition come from China. Yeah, so they can pretty much hold us in a stranglehold for as long as they want by not shipping all those things needed to make ammo. We are truly right now fighting a proxy war in Ukraine against Russia. And Russia is teaming up with China and meeting in North Korea on the anniversary of the Korean War armistice. So you've got that going on this week, where you got China, Russia, and they're meeting in North Korea. There's got to be something behind that other than just a few parades and speeches, and I'm a little concerned about what's going on there. If you remember, not too awful long ago, our illustrious administration decided to run down our strategic oil reserves so that he could reduce the price of gas at the pumps, and he did that, and it did reduce the price of gas at the pump until it comes such a time as we have to refill our strategic oil reserves, and we'll be paying a much higher premium for the oil that goes into those strategic reserves. But without strategic reserves, we are at the mercy of those that do have strategic reserves. We won't have enough to refine, to make gasoline, to make diesel, whatever it is that we're going to need to augment a war effort, should we ever have that come to fruition. Our current economic situation, well, the stock market seems to be doing a little bit better this month than I would have expected at this time of year. I remain overly depressed by the future look here. Yeah, profits are looking like they're being reported pretty well, but I am very concerned about the overall financial infrastructure that's out there, with the wages being stagnant, the inflation continuing to be on the rise, even though it seems to have mitigated slightly over the last couple of months. We are still paying a goodly percentage above what we should be paying in a healthy economy. So our economy is a weak point for us right now should the Chinese decide that they are going to do something incredibly stupid, or that our administration is going to do something incredibly stupid. So just this morning, I happened to catch this on a news headline that China has ousted its foreign minister who has been missing for a month. Now, it seems that this fella may have had some critical comments about the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese administration, somewhere along the line, and he just somehow disappeared and has now been ousted from his position, and he's gone. So take that for what you will. That's the way Chinese politics works. I think we're getting a taste of it here in the United States. If you look at what Joe Biden and the Department of Justice is trying to do to his political rival in the upcoming presidential election. There was also an article that was right next to this one on Fox News, and I'll put the link up here, that China is playing the Biden officials for suckers on climate. Now, this is an opinion piece, but I happen to think that they may have hit the nail on the proverbial head here. While we're so very concerned about regulating our natural gas machinery, things like our air conditioners, our water heaters, our gas stoves, all that kind of stuff. And if you've been watching, if you haven't been, I'll tell you, natural gas measurements, natural gas pricing, that's the better way to put it, has dropped from about 9 or 920 per unit of measure, which I think is like 100 cubic meters or cubic somethings, and it's dropped from 9.2, 920 down to about 270 right now. And that's only been in the last 4 or 5 months. These are future prices, so they're predictions of what's coming, but it's had a definite impact on folks that, in Pennsylvania, for example, that are receiving royalties from their gas wells. They're seeing a much reduced level of income because the pricing is being suppressed. And the pricing is being suppressed for reasons that I can't quite put my finger on, but I suspect it's got an awful lot to do with trying to hold down the demand for natural gas and the related products that natural gas is known to produce. Also in the news, I stumbled on this one early this morning too, from Newsmax, and it says that a China propaganda firm promoted and organized District of Columbia protests. And I'm going to read just a significant paragraph from the body of the story. Mandiant, a security firm owned by Google, studied the activity of Shanghai Hexon Technology Company Limited and concluded that pro-China campaigns promoted through fake news websites, organized protests, and even hired paid protesters in an operation intended to sow discord in U.S. society. This wouldn't be the first time that China has endeavored to influence what's going on from a societal perspective, from a popularism perspective, from fake news perspective. China is adept at this, and they do a darn good job of swaying those folks that ain't doing their homework. And if you see stuff like this, take it research it, make sure you understand the issues behind what's going on here, but China is not our friend. Blaze Media recently published this, and the headline says, Western elites figured China would surpass and displace America in short order. Only now, the communist economy is sputtering. And I think that's one of the concerns, one of the many concerns that I have about what the future for a potential for World War III has. One thing that sputtering economies have in common is their need to have an excuse to bolster and support their economic infrastructure, and they do that by going to war. I see that that's going on in Russia right now with what their activity has been for the last year plus in Ukraine, and I think China is poised to do exactly the same thing, whether it be an invasion of Taiwan, to retake Taiwan, or whether it would be to attack the United States, whether it be the Aleutian Islands, Hawaii, the West Coast and California. They're going to need something to re-kickstart their economy, to make it work for them instead of working for everybody else. We are, I think, can't quote on this, but we are the largest consumer of Chinese goods. In fact, if you're a prepper like I am, it's very hard to get things like solar generators and the related kinds of things that we are going to need to rely on in the future when the S does hit the fan. Most of it's coming from China, and I'm concerned about that we have foregone our manufacturing capacity, and we have bolstered China's capacity to produce the goods cheaper than what we could here. And the public is, and I'm as guilty as the next guy, when you're going to go look to buy a generator, a solar generator, this kind or that kind or whatever, reverse osmosis water filters, they're made in China. Some of the best camera equipment, some of the best microphones, some of the best lights and lighting sources coming from China. So we've got to be somewhat careful. We've got to encourage those decision makers to begin to reverse the trend and reestablish our ability to manufacture for ourselves right here in the United States. I remain concerned about the potential for World War III. I have very little faith in the current administration is going to be able to talk us out of it, get us involved in it. Yeah, I think they will. But I remain very concerned. What can you do? Well, you can be prepared. You can make sure you've got enough food to last you for a long, long time. I'm thinking that a year's probably not going to be enough anymore to set as a target. You may need to go 18 months to 2 years. Make sure you've got a source of water. Make sure you've got a way to purify that water so that you can consume that water. And because water is one of the absolute necessities for survival when the S hits the fan. Make sure you got food, make sure you got water, make sure you've secured your shelter, make sure you've got the right defensive mechanisms in place to protect your property, your family, and yourself. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see you all on the next video.